Trump seems relentless. I like, it's unclear. Like at one point, right? When it becomes clear that he's not going to get this, like even if they're managed to somehow screw over all of the people in Detroit and throw out their votes, he's still not going to become president. And so it's unclear on some level, like where's the off ramp for him here, right? Like, I mean, how does he keep losing all these things? Where's the one victory he gets and he walks out and he goes, well, at least justice has been served and I'm no longer going to be president because I care about this country.
Right,
like,
right.
I don't like what
well,
is
remember when he was forced to give that speech that said that Obama was actually born in the United States and he was wrong on this drum that he was banging over and over again about birtherism? He did so reluctantly, and it was one of the first times we'd seen him in the campaign in 2016 look not like the guy that he was, because he was basically reading a hostage statement. He did not want to do it. I feel like we could see something like that where he acknowledges that Biden will be the next president, but that there are irregularities. And then once that farce is over, he'll continue his Fox News, OANN appearances, Newsmax, whatever, where he acts like the same exact guy and never, ever gives it up.
Yeah.
Why would he do that? Like, I just think he's just not going to, I think he's just going to, like, I don't know. I think he's just going to go down to Mar-a-Lago for Christmas and just never come back, until like 3 weeks later, he's going to hold a rally or something like that. But here is the Michigan House Speaker explaining why he met with Donald Trump. This is to Fox and Friends over the weekend.
He got some nice champagne out of it.
I went for a free meal.
To make that request to the president, was happy to do that. But there was this outrage that the president was going to ask us to break the law and he was going to ask us to interfere. And that just simply didn't happen, Pete. So I was happy to meet with the president, happy to talk with him and to kind of give him an update on what's going on in the state of Michigan.
So there was an update given, but this whole conspiracy that he's trying to twist your arm to disenfranchise voters, not true.
Simply not true, Pete. I mean, when the president calls, you take that meeting. And before, we're red or blue. I mean, this is the president here. I was happy to do it. It was a historic day and glad we took the meeting. Now,
as we mentioned in the open of this segment, the Michigan State Board of Canvassers scheduled to meet on Monday. As I understand it, there are 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats on this board. Will they vote to certify, do you think? And if it's a hung jury, if it's 2-2, what happens after that?
Right. Well, I can tell you this, Pete. I'm certainly not going to interfere in that process, and I have not had a conversation with the Board of State Canvassers, and I don't intend on having a conversation with the Board of State Canvassers. But the way that we have set it up here in the state of Michigan, our state law is that, as you mentioned, it is two.
But why? Why wouldn't he have a conversation with them? Like, why is that any different than Donald Trump having a conversation with this guy? Like, it's just, I'm just checking in, in on the process. I mean, I'm just having a nice meal.
Yeah, like the willful ignorance about how these things work. I mean, first of all, Trump behaves like a 2-bit mob boss and has these guys over, wines and dines them. And he doesn't explicitly say, I want you to interfere with the Michigan election results. But it was reported they were receiving $500 to $700 bottles of champagne. It was very fancy. They're meeting with the president. He's flexing his power, and it's so obvious. And then Fox, like, if Obama had done that, I mean, Bill Clinton meeting on the tarmac, back in 2016, that there was some weirdness about that, right? But like they were up in arms about it, and now they're pretending like, oh, this is not. He just out of the blue calls these Michigan lawmakers flies them out.
It is a presidential tradition where you call in the lawmakers from a state that is a swing state that you feel you should win when the canvassers are still, there's a lot of controversy as to whether they certify. It is one of the oldest presidential tradition. You bring those lawmakers in during a pandemic to wine and dine them. It is, I don't know, it's like there's some old, Matt, isn't it like there's a specific name for that tradition.
It's like
the bringing of the hamburgers.
It's like the pardoning of the turkey. It's the same kind of deal. First, you got to bring the Michigan lawmakers in. You got to serve them thousands of dollars of drinks.
The plying of the lawmaker. That is what is. It's that tradition. It's the Thanksgiving plying of the lawmaker, And then, all right, so go back. And I like the guy's like, I would never, ever talk to the canvassers. That would be completely inappropriate.
Well,
what?
I also like how he's like, I'd take that meeting. Like, if there isn't a more like young Republican bit of humor, it's that understatement like, oh, I'd take that meeting.
Right.
Like, oh, get out of here.
Go ahead.
Pete, I'm certainly not going to interfere in that process, and I have not had a conversation with the Board of State Canvassers, and I don't intend on having a conversation with the Board of State Canvassers. But the way that we have set it up here in the state of Michigan, our state law, is that, as you mentioned, it is 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and they certify the election for whoever won the popular vote. Now, as you mentioned, the RNC and the MRP have both made a request to simply delay that certification for 2 weeks until there can be a full and complete audit done in Wayne County. Pete, we have 71% of the precincts in Wayne County. Their absentee ballots books don't match what's on the rolls. And that's very concerning. That's why the legislature, we've been doing our own investigations. We've been doing our own reviews of these reports of fraud and the reports of irregularities. And I think these need to be looked into. So, Pete, as you mentioned, if there were to be a 2-2 split on the State Board of Canvassers, it would then go to the Michigan Supreme Court to determine what their response would be, what their order would be. If they didn't have an order that it be certified, well, now we have a constitutional crisis in the state of Michigan that's never occurred before, because as the federal Constitution says, this is left up to the state legislatures. The state legislature decided long ago to do it this way. So if this way doesn't work, obviously now we have questions that have arisen in Michigan for the very first time in our state.
You're talking about tens of thousands of votes potentially on.
No, you're not. No, you're not. It's all complete ridiculous kabuki theater. I mean, like, I know that Fox News doesn't actually pretend to be a journalistic organization. They only do that as a pretense to keep doing what they're doing. But like, the fact that you wouldn't ask any follow-up questions about why just Wayne County? Why just Wayne County? Why not do if you wanted to be fair and balanced, why not do an entire state audit and look at every other area of the state? But of course, there's no question asked why they're singling out the county that contains Detroit.
Right.
It is interesting to see what Fox News, where they will go with him and where they won't, because they do need to maintain some tiny shred of legitimacy, I guess, which is like, not the same thing, but sort of comparable to all those folks he appointed to the Supreme Court. Right? Like, They wanted to help him steal the election, but they just had nothing to work with.
That's right.
It's all a calculation about how can I still be a hack for the Republican Party on a daily basis and get paid to do so? But I have to at least give the appearance that I'm not completely bought and paid for. So this is the line I need to toe.
There's also an angle of like Trump's like still in the safe, just emptying it, and the Republicans being like, "Come on, can we just get in the getaway car now?"
Yeah,